Well, let's put all of this to Matt Vickers, who's a Conservative MP, he's also Shadow Home Office Minister. A very good afternoon to you, Matt.
Good afternoon, Julia.
Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Well, your boss, I suppose, Chris Philp, the Shadow Home Secretary, he has called for, police to get involved. Lots of talk for, the Director General of the BBC to go. What action should be taken against both Bob Vylan, the rap duo, and the BBC?
We are definitely in that space. We've heard an apology. It's an apology. We want to see what's going to be done about it. You make rightly the contrast between Lucy Connolly and this situation. Somebody tweeting to whatever followers they might have on Twitter versus absolutely vile, horrific stuff that's happened to here, but being broadcast by a state broadcaster, paid for by licence fee payers. It is entirely unacceptable. Someone needs to be held to account. And the people who choose to spew this vile stuff out on stage to this huge audience deserve to face real consequences.
Well, look, for people who've been living under a stone for the last couple of days, let's play a little clip. Again, there is a difference between people informing people by what with the chant, as opposed to just like putting out as if it's just acceptable. So this is what the punk rap duo, born in the ghettos of Ipswich, what they had to say to some 30,000 live crowd at Glastonbury, one of the stages, and of course many, many more watching on the live stream on the BBC. This is the chant.
Death, death to the IDF, 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 death, death to the IDF. Hell yeah, from the river to the sea, Palestine must be, will be, inshallah, it will be free.
I mean, I'm thinking after the first death to the IDF, you'd have another 4 chances to push the button on that. Is the BBC treated differently from any other broadcasters? Because I'm pretty darn sure that if we here at Talk or any other rival station broadcast something similar, something equivalent, we'd be hauled over the coals. Ofcom say they're looking into it and they're very concerned. But I think the rules seem to be different, in particular when it comes to the BBC admitted anti-Semitic sentiments. This wasn't the only thing that this guy had to say on stage. If anyone was, my station or many other stations, if they'd shouted stuff about black people or Muslims, do you think that the same reaction would have been had by the BBC staff? Or do you agree with me, and it's a point I put to a very senior executive at the BBC who was outraged when I said this to them, that actually the BBC is now institutionally anti-Semitic?
It is. Well, we saw the carry on with the documentary by, Hamas relatives. On you come, tell us your worldview. But
this is a little boy who was supposed to be some little lad and there's an hour-long documentary, and it turns out he's the son of a Hamas official.
Yeah, I mean, utterly ridiculous. That is what the BBC is feeding us. But the public rely on the BBC. Stupidly, we all pay our licence fees. Well, some of us pay our licence fees or don't, to contribute to this thing. It's meant to be independent. It's meant to be above politics. It's meant to be above all this shenanigans. But you rightly say, Vic, if something of the same style happened on your channel, it would be real consequence. There should be 2 bars. But their bar should be higher than yours. They are funded by taxpayers against our will. There are options as to whether people tune in to a channel or not. They're paying for that, whether they like it or not. It's absolutely horrendous. I also think there should be consequences for Glastonbury. This guy didn't turn up by surprise. We didn't go, how shocking, we didn't see this coming. They knew exactly what to expect from this guy. There is no big surprises. It should never have been allowed. And the same applies to Kneecap. Entirely unacceptable.
Does it apply to Jade from Little Mix, who shouted F to reform and F to, thing is, it's now the thing. I mean, Kate Nash as well, another performer. It's now the thing to just, swear, be abusive about people with different political views. That's now the norm. Shouldn't the argument be, could we take the politics out of music, these performances? Could we take the politics out of sport, taking the knee, rainbow lanyards, you name it? Could we just have a little bit of fun without being lectured?
But it's also not just difference in opinions on politics, is it? Because Kneecap are out there calling for riots. You've got this guy calling for death to certain
They called
people.
for a riot outside the court when Kneecap next appear, yeah.
It's a level above just having differences in political opinion. But actually, that's, I think, one of the problems with society today is actually all these big stars who young people look up to, like the footballers. Can you remember when Eric Cantona kicked somebody in the crowd and everybody went, "Oh my God, that's disgusting." Now look at what footballers do now. These people are they're the people who young people aspire to be and to behave like. And we have pop stars doing it, we have footballers doing it, and there are huge consequences for society. Not only that, not only are they doing it, but we're now paying for them to do it by the power of the BBC. It is entirely unacceptable.
Should people be forced to pay for the BBC? Look, we've had people say that, they don't want to pay their licence fee anymore, whether they watch live TV or not.
I think this brings it, you know what? Every year Glastonbury gets worse and worse, more vile, more disgusting. Every so many months we have this debate about the BBC and what they are and aren't broadcasting and how it lacks any form of political neutrality or independence. This has turned the dial again. We need to go back again. We need to have a national debate again about the state of the BBC, and we probably need to put it out of its misery.
Oh, very interesting. So you think it's time for the BBC to be unfunded?
I think we need to look at it again. I think this has brought things to another new low bar for the BBC. It's absolutely appalling. Somebody needs to be held to account. It's all well and good issuing an apology. There needs to be action. We need to make sure that this cannot carry on. And if it is going to carry on, then they can go and form some lefty channel somewhere and get on with it, not at the cost of the taxpayer.
OK, right. Well, let's talk about what else is. I mean, I'm sure there's going to be statements coming up in Parliament this week about all of this. But where are we in terms of welfare reforms? Because the Prime Minister's been accused of a third massive U-turn with fuel payments, whether or not there should be a national public inquiry into the rape gangs, the grooming gangs, but also now on disability benefits. He was facing a rebellion by some 126 backbench Labour MPs at the vote tomorrow in the House of Commons. Over the weekend, we know he's been ranging back, and so basically the changes to disability benefits, to personal independence payments, that's going to only affect people going forward, not people who are signing on going forward, but not people who are already on those benefits. Is that the right thing for the Prime Minister to have done?
I think there's two massive illustrations of what's going on here. One is the guy cannot stand by his principles. He cannot deliver what he's decided is right for the country. He thinks it's the right thing to do. He can't deliver it. He's got a massive majority, an unspeakable majority, and cannot get this stuff through. Why isn't he able to convince his own MPs that he's doing the right thing? But the other big problem is the fact he's already spent what he thought he was going to save from this. We're already running up that huge debt. We're already saddling people with unprecedented levels of tax. And he thinks that, where's the money going to come from? This is a huge amount of money. The IFS reckons that the welfare bill will be 66 billion by 29-30. It's got to come from somewhere. We cannot have more people hit with more taxes. There's now the whole debate around the two-child benefit cap. These things, it's not sustainable. People out there trying to earn a living, trying to work, trying to get on the housing ladder, people trying to run businesses, create jobs, deliver economic growth, battered by unprecedented levels of tax. He's already spent what he was meant to be saving with this, and now he's going to have to go back to the drawing board, which probably means more tax for those hardworking people across the country.
Look, a lot of people I know will be agreeing with everything you said, but they'd also quite rightly point out that you guys, the Tories, you put taxes up to unprecedented levels yourselves, and you allowed that benefits explosion. Huge number of people, 1 in 10 working age people now on these sorts of benefits, 1 in 8 young people on these sorts of benefits. There's no evidence whatsoever that Britain is uniquely impacted by either lockdown or COVID or anything else that means that we have so many people, particularly the biggest growth has been in those claiming to have mental health issues, compared with any other country, neighbouring or around the world, that has also gone through the same pandemic. That's the one everyone goes, oh, it all changed then. You guys were in office, you presided over this, and now you're saying, oh, isn't it terrible? Keir Starmer won't do anything about it. You're the ones that let it happen.
Well, two probes there. One is about the cost and the taxes. Well, one thing that did happen that was unprecedented is the scale of the cost of COVID. If you walk down the high street here and ask businesses what they got during the pandemic that allowed them to carry on business, allowed them to keep those jobs going, and allowed our economy to keep going. That's one thing in terms of costs and taxes.
But that, by the way, that wasn't the cost of COVID. That was the cost of lockdown policy.
Well, we can have that debate, but actually...
No, we don't have that. I don't think... No, that was the cost. Let's be accurate with our speech. The reason why businesses needed help to keep afloat was because they were forced to close their doors and not work.
We were right to support them. I was a rebel during the pandemic. We know that all too well. I got into lots of trouble for it, and it got me wrist slapped and probably would have been doing a different job by now. But yes, there was lots of consequences, but one thing that I am grateful from the previous government is the fact they supported these businesses. And go and take you to a few businesses in my high street that wouldn't be here now.
Given that they've done the dumb policy of closing everything down, I'm glad that people got support. We're paying for it now, and everyone knew we'd be paying for it now. But that's still not an excuse for basically a massive increase. I mean, a huge explosion in the number of people, particularly young people, claiming disability benefits because everyone's being assessed on Zoom.
So I couldn't agree more in terms of the people out of work. But actually, the last what they did do is they brought in tougher sanctions. They brought in universal credit, which was revolutionary in changing the game and holding people to account. We were told we were evil, cruel, horrendous people for supporting such policy. Two-child cap. The debate's out again, but actually it was the right thing to do. There was that example that was in the paper about someone with 12 kids taking home £40,000 a year, while other people are struggling to make ends meet and pay their own bills while subsidising those. It's wrong, but the one thing that was going right is near record levels of employment. There were 4 million more people in work, and actually, the scary thing about this welfare debate is the channels that they're picking. There are going to be more people out of work. This bill will inevitably rise as they take the axe to anybody who tries to work for a living and create jobs. Any small business out there, go to your local pub, go to your local retailer, go to any business in the country who's been hit with that jobs tax, who's been hit with those changes to business rates relief. They are they're creating more unemployed people, and this bill will inevitably rise, not only because they haven't got the bottle to go through with the reforms that they need to go through with, but because there are more people out of work.
But do you accept that the reforms that Keir Starmer was proposing didn't even touch the sides of the need in terms of what needed to be done? And the reason why the problem is so bad is because you guys allowed it to become that bad. The explosion has happened since 2020. You guys were in office for 4 of those years.
There was a scheme there, there was a plan there to take 12 billion off it. That would have been the right thing to do. He's watered it down, he's made it wet, he's only doing half the job, and actually he's then bottled doing half the job. We'll never get the full fat reforms that we need that will actually be for benefit. They're not just a benefit to our economy. It's not just a benefit to the people who are working and contributing to the system. It's a benefit to those people who are spending a lifetime out of work. Ambitions, aspirations, binned, mental health conditions on the rise because people aren't actually having meaningful lives where they can go out and live their best life, earn a living, aspire to do more. You can't just throw people on the scrap heap and expect there not to be consequences. It's not just wrong on the people who pay the tax, it's wrong on the people who are left on the scrap heap out of work.
I mean, again, another reason why lots of people are out of work is a lot of times work doesn't pay enough for you to actually live a life, unless, for instance, you're an asylum seeker, you've arrived and you're put into an asylum hotel, and the rest of us are paying taxes to pay for your asylum hotel, which is what we've seen this Big Sun expose the last week or so of basically people arriving here and being able to basically subcontract a licence to be a food delivery rider for Uber Eats, Deliveroo and Just Eat. We know that the Home Office is calling in the senior figures in those 3 companies and others to say, like, you know, sort it out, because we've got the reporter, we spoke to him on the show only last week. He's gone out and he's basically said, you pretended to be an asylum seeker, and he's been given, you know, these apps, and he's been literally told, yeah, you can pay 40 quid, you can sign on, you can deliver this food. And he's actually saying to the people he's delivering to, like, you know, this is the basis on which I've got to deliver this food. We need to crack down on this, don't we? But the reality is a lot of these big companies making billions of pounds in profit worldwide, their operating practice is based on, we will pay wages that are below what most people who are living legally and paying for their own accommodation could ever afford to accept, and we are going to be subsidised effectively by the taxpayer funding people like asylum seekers to do this job for a lower rate. It's part of the system now, isn't it?
There's also these ridiculous people who are profiting like hell from running these hotels, putting these people up in ever-increasing numbers since the last government came in, up 28%. But actually, those people, what is going on when they see all these Deliveroo bikes parked outside? What on earth is going on that there is nobody goes, we're getting this much money from the government to house these people, and we think we should also just turn a blind eye to all this going outside? It's absolutely unbelievable and unacceptable. And when it comes to Deliveroo and Uber Eats and all the other, in fact, I shouldn't name them because I'm promoting them, shouldn't I? We should hold them to a higher account. The public should hold them to a higher account, and we should give them a damn good kicking over it. And the first one that comes out and takes the measures necessary to stop it, that's who we should be supporting. We should hold them to account, kick them about, and find out who's willing to make a stand and employ people properly. I'd be willing to pay a little bit more to get it paid by someone who's legitimately earning a living than allowing people to capitalise on this situation.
Exactly. I think a lot of us feel the same way. Matt Vickers, Tory MP, Shadow Home Office Minister, thank you very much indeed for joining us.